Happy Friday. Happy Friday. And it's not raining for a change. Did y'all have a lot of storm damage yesterday? We had that crazy hailstorm pass through last night. Crazy weather we're having. All right. I want to do something different today. We're always in the AP classroom. Just do something different, a little challenging. Earth Day is coming up and on the 22nd. It's also the week. You don't have milestones, but it's the week of milestones. So there's a limit to how many things we can do during milestone week. But I wanted to give you something to think about. I'm going to wait for everybody to get in. But if you look at, well, first I'm going to look at the table that's due, and then I'll pull up the second. April the 14th. Okay. Trying to find a way to change the date on that. Alrighty, good afternoon, good afternoon. All right, if you go to your Canvas page, I'm going to look at just waiting for everybody to get in so I don't have to repeat it 5 times. It for you. It's today. Okay, after I let these two young ladies in, then but go ahead and look at, and I'm going to pull up my Canvas page and share. And then we're going to do an activity. Every time I share, I lose the class. Okay. All right. Good afternoon. If you just came in, we're on the page in Canvas. And so last week, not last week, last class, we looked at the videos for Green Revolution and irrigation and pest control. So with those videos in mind, there is not a video for, there's a video for 5.6. There are no AP questions for 5.6 because it kind of duplicates with what you're doing in 5.14. So with these three, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, you want to maybe watch those videos again or just read the Canvas section. This was supposed to come up like a chart, but it did not translate as a chart. And I'm sorry about that, but you can make yours a chart. And so in the first column for your chart, you would have the practices, which would be environmental use of genetically modified crops, use of organic fertilizers, method to prevent or remediate soil salinization, and economic use of genetically modified crops. So notice the first two are kind of same. First one is environmental use. The last one is economic use of genetically modified crops. And as we were watching all of the videos, they always entered the FRQ question was always, what is the advantage or disadvantage of using these methods? So I just want you to create a chart with that, and this will be a good study tool for you as well as when you get ready to do the exam, the advantages and disadvantages of using these things. Okay. All right. So, but put that off to the side for a minute. What I want you to look at is the other thing that I have posted on here. And where did it go? It keeps disappearing on me. Ah, I had a discussion posted. Let me see if it moved to the module, because I think that's what it did. And I just changed the date on it, and it was just there. All right, let me see if it's, because it's, oh, yeah, there it is. It should be on your discussion. All right, here we go. I don't know why it's not on the front page on the table. Maybe it is on your, but look for this. We're going to watch a short video, and then I have a question for you. Let me click on view as a student and make sure that you can see it. So this is a discussion question, but it is a graded discussion question. All right. All right, so I put the link in there so that you can watch it again later, but we're gonna watch it together. But after you watch the video, they come up with some things that we can do to make us better global citizens. And that's the objective of environmental sciences, to teach you about environmental practices and to get you to in, because the future is yours and you want to have a future that's livable for you. So they've come up with some things that you can do in just your backyard, in your neighborhood. And then, so I want you to watch this. And then after you watch it, think of 5 ways you can make your living space, your backyard, your community, more sustainable. Okay, some practices that you could possibly do. Now, if you don't have a backyard, sometimes people do things on the roof of their building. Or there might be a space in the park where you can actually do some of these things. So we're just going to watch this video, and then I'll give you a chance to add your discussion points to this. It is set up so that you can respond to people. You don't have to respond to people, but you should read other people's ideas. All right, so let's watch this video together. And again, it's where the objective here is to try to make you what we call a better global citizen. Let me save this as soon as it's not saved to your list, but I'm going to make sure.
This is me using my 5-year-old's dry erase table to try to make a point.
Woohoo! The spring is here! Sun's out, fun's out! Can't wait!
This is not in the AP book. This is an extra, something different to do, deviating from the AP classroom.
There's the sustainability reason to consume less and the resilience reason. And they're both important, and it's interesting how much overlap there is between the practices of sustainability and the practices of resilience. In this context, there seems to be almost 100% overlap. The same practices of self-sufficiency, frugality, exploring renewable energy can take the same form whether you're being driven by sustainability reasons or wanting to be able to adapt if you find yourself with less money or with more insecure financial situation or a contracting economy.
Hi, I'm Helen.
I'm Sam.
We live here in Coburg, which is about 7 kilometres north of the Melbourne city centre, with our son who's 12. It's a fairly standard 3-bedroom weatherboard house on about 1/10 of an acre. So when I moved here to this house in 2004, I had a very lovely green lawn at the front and a garden at the back with lawn and a few natives, but it wasn't a productive space. So one of the first things that I did was dig some veggie beds. And over the years, Sam moved in, we worked together and planted fruit trees at the back, and then started doing some more work at the front, expanded the areas there. So it's now become a really productive space. Producing food in our home is a really important part of this, certainly for me. And then cooking that food, preserving it, and just enjoying it.
The more you read about environmental problems, the more you read about social justice issues, the more you learn that the world's going in a difficult direction. We're grossly over-consuming the planet's resources. There are literally billions around the world who are, by any humane sense, under-consuming, and yet even the richest nations, even the richest people are still seeming to seek ever more and more. If it's the case that we're in ecological overshoot, while billions still need to lift their material living standards in some form to live well, that implies that the most over-consuming nations and regions of the world need to contract, not through recession, but through sort of planned, deliberate contraction. That's what degrowth means. And it seems to me to be the only coherent way to move toward one planet living.
This is our solar dish, and it works like a stovetop. So you just pop a kettle or saucepan on there. Uses the power of the sun to heat up. And the other great thing about it is it packs down really neatly, so it's pretty portable as well.
One of my passions and concerns is the role of energy in the civilization that we find ourselves in. There's this widespread idea that we'll simply be able to transition to green energy, solar panels or even nuclear power, and maintain this way of life. I've come to the position that we probably can't run a globalized consumer society purely on renewable energy, and that's made us think through a range of energy practices that are trying to build resilience and to kind of deal thoughtfully, coherently with the problems of peak oil and climate change. In our suburban plot, we have started by putting solar panels on the roof. About 5 years ago, we put 2 kilowatts on. And then when we disconnected from gas about 6 months ago, we put another 4 kilowatts on. This is our most recent and perhaps unusual renewable energy technology. It's a biogas digester, which we call Betty. We have been putting in about 1.5 kilograms of food waste into the biogas digester, and over the last 4 months it's provided essentially all of our cooking gas, and I've also set up a biogas hot water system, and it's connected to an outside shower, so it doesn't replace our indoor hot water system, but it does supplement it. We don't produce enough food waste to feed it ourselves. Once a week I bike down to the local fruit and veggie market, hop into their bin and take about 10 kilograms of food. Biogas is produced when organic matter biodegrades in the absence of oxygen, and when it does that it produces a mixture of gases which can be used to provide a number of energy services, from cooking to heating space to lighting and heating water. It's been an incredible means of providing clean, green, free, net zero carbon emissions energy in it. For me, the first year of doctoral study, you have this extraordinary privilege of essentially having to read a lot, and through that exposure to environmental literature, social justice literature, I came across the writings of Henry David Thoreau. Thoreau's message essentially is to explore the good life in non-materialistic ways, and that struck a chord with me. And I guess most of my work has been about thinking through the politics and the macroeconomics of that notion of sufficiency. You know, it just made sense if there were certain problems that had certain solutions, even if they were vague solutions and uncertain solutions, to try to explore them in practice. That's been the experiment of our household in the last decade. It's been a process, not a destination, and it will probably remain a process.
My upbringing was very much centred around growing your own food and making things and repairing things, not necessarily for environmental reasons, more related to being less wasteful and being self-sufficient. And so being able to be somewhere like this where I've been able to practice it has been really good. I think it's been a bit of an evolution rather than a sudden change. For me, certainly it wasn't a case of waking up overnight and saying, I've got to change something.
We have this tenth of an acre in Melbourne suburbia, and we recognise that there is a privilege that comes with that, and that not everybody can access, especially in Melbourne. Like, we probably wouldn't be able to afford this house if it was purchased today. These practices are available to us, but not necessarily universally available, and I think that's important for people to recognise.
Some of Sam's ideas seemed quite radical. I've needed, on occasion, a bit of persuading to adopt those, but actually it turned out pretty well. So no regrets at all. People ask me how do you have time for all the stuff that you do. I work 4 days a week, but it's partly about making time. It's about prioritising work in the garden or cooking or sewing over watching TV, something like that. But it's a really enjoyable activity to get out in the garden and harvest food. So it's about valuing the process as well as enjoying the outcome.
And, you know, we both have been able to work about 4 days a week each, which again we recognise as a privilege, but also it's been enabled by us being pretty frugal and thoughtful with money, and practising voluntary simplicity, living as simply as we can in a material sense. And when you kind of go through the various aspects of a household's outgoings, you can often find that it can be trimmed.
So this is our car. We generally don't use it all that often because we cycle or we take public transport most of the time. So we recently put it on the Car Next Door platform. It enables people that are close by to rent your car when you're not using it. So it's all done through an app. When somebody books the car in the available time, they're given a code for the lockbox, and the person can then go and get the key and off they go. When a borrower takes our car, they pay a daily or an hourly charge, and they pay per kilometre. We then get a little bit of income at the end of each month. It means that not so many cars are necessarily on the road at one time. So far it's worked really well for us, so we're able to book out the car when we do need it, and the rest of the time other people can book it. Otherwise our car would have been sitting in the driveway doing nothing, so it's win-win.
There'll be, again, households that won't be able to tighten the belt easily, but I think in Australian affluent society there are lots of households that would be able to consume considerably less, and that means you're less committed to working those hours to pay for that consumption. That's the kind of key trade-off and the most attractive self-interested argument about this way of life is that you're exchanging superfluous consumption for more time, more freedom. It looks as if the burden is going to be on individuals, households and communities to be the prime driver for change. And so it's not that that's necessarily the best or the most efficient way to do it, but if people come to the conclusion that they can't rely on governments, then it follows that the drivers for change have to be ordinary people at the grassroots level getting active.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there because it's a lot of commentary on the rest of it. But I like that they had a variety of alternatives for sustainable living. For example, when they used the food waste to create the biogas, there are actually restaurants, because they have these big vats where they fry the French fries, and they actually reuse the oil that they have in a generator, some, not everybody, and they create their energy that way by reusing the oil, rather than, imagine every day that you fry these French fries and then you have to throw that oil out again. So they use it in a generator to generate energy. And so there are a wealth of different activities that you can do in order to reuse things, to recycle and make your little part of the world more sustainable. And so what I'm looking at in this question is, you're not actually trying to save the world right now. You're just trying to make your little part of the world more sustainable. So again, you can relook at the video if you like, but I would like for you to discuss 5 ways that you can make your living space more sustainable. It could be to, composting, creating a garden, taking, fewer showers, things of that nature. So think about some of the things they talked about. They ride their bicycles. They have a new version of rideshare. They actually rent out their car so that everybody doesn't have to have a car, and then you only need a car when you need to have one. So you rent theirs. So think about things that you could possibly, 5 things that you could possibly do. Be descriptive. Don't just give me a list of, I could do this, 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 and this. Give me a nice, good sentence as to 5 things that you can do to make yourself a more global citizen, something that you personally, they were raising their own food and vegetables and chickens and ducks and things like that. So what can you possibly do? Like I said, you might not have a backyard. It might be something that you can create, ask your community to be interested in, or maybe a neighbor has a nice backyard. Maybe they would be willing for you to cultivate their little garden if you share resources with them. So think of some ideas about what your community is. Again, if you're in an apartment building, sometimes people in big cities, they create gardens on the rooftops. So think about where you are. So you got to describe your space first, and then talk about 5 things that you could do with that space to make it a more sustainable way of life. Okay. All right. So that's not due till next week. So that's something that I want you to look at. Also finish your AP 5.3, 4, and 5 activity. Okay. All right. So that's it. And I'm going to stop talking so that you can do that. If you have any questions about what it is you need to do, just ask. All right, it is on your, okay. So what's on the list here are things that you should have done, but might not have done. So if you haven't done your 5.9 FRQ, you should. And most of you have, so I don't think I'm looking for anybody on that one. In the AP classroom, you want to make sure you've done the quizzes for 5.3, 4, and 5. A lot of you need to do that. I got Van, William, and Kamari are the only 3 people who have completed that one. And then everybody needs to do the last 2. Okay? So you should, if you have to do any of these, you should do them in this order. Like I said, the sustainable city living is not due till next week. And during milestones, I know most of you all are juniors and seniors, you're not taking milestones. Then again, you might have a class that you have a milestone in, but so we're not supposed to do anything heavy lifting during that week. So I want to do some Earth Day activities that will also parallel with topics that you have in for the AP exam, which is in May. So you got a whole nother month before you have to be ready for that. All right, I promise to stop talking. I'm going to do that. Okay, Deborah, I'm going to check those 2 right now. As soon as I do attendance. Deborah, the FRQ 5.9 was a thing that we had in Canvas, so it's not showing that you submitted that. Journey, you either, those are the only 2 I'm missing. So you have to check Canvas for that one. It's not in AP Classroom because they did not have a question for 5.9 in the AP Classroom. So we took the question at the end of the video and put that as a question in Canvas. So that's a Canvas question that you have to look at 5.9. So Journey and Deborah, you need to look in Canvas for that one. And then everything else is in the AP Classroom. Okay. Okay, not trying to pile a whole lot of stuff on you, but some of you have done 5.14, which is available, and some of you haven't. That's something in the AP classroom. I have recorded all the scores for 3, 4, 5, because I grouped those three together. So if you, so the 14 will be separate from that. Somebody else coming in the class. Keeps logging me out. I didn't spell all of those correctly, but I think you'll get the general idea, Gabby. Okay, folks, if you have no further questions for me, you can have a great weekend. Stay safe.